Hey everyone, this is Michael and Perry from EMC.
So the Lucid Gravity is the newest, hottest kid on the EV block. But how does it stand up against the tried and true Tesla Model X? It's a geezer of a vehicle at this point, but
before you spend over $100,000 on either of these vehicles, make sure to spend a couple minutes watching our full review.
you don't understand the gravity of the situation.
I can't believe you didn't make a joke about that. All right, so let's first start off by talking about range. Both of these vehicles have a pretty impressive OEM rated range. And so the Tesla Model X was rated at 352 miles, whereas the Lucid Gravity 5-seat, and both of these are for the 5-seaters, was rated at an impressive 450 miles of range. And I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about charging speeds.
But does it really get 450 miles of range? So unfortunately, Edmunds has not tested the brand new Tesla Model X refresh, or really any Tesla Model X since 2020. So we don't feel comfortable putting up what the real world estimates are at this point.
You can find them online though if you Google it.
So the Gravity, however, it was rated for 450 and change, or 450, and then it actually got 388. Is that right?
Yes, from what I had seen for the 5-seater config, it got 388 miles. How would you feel if you bought an SUV for over $100,000 and it said 450 miles of range, but you're getting 388
It's
miles?
a tough thing. So the thing that people don't realize is the volatility of efficiency. The more efficient a thing becomes, the more that little factors like rain or temperature or wind resistance or driving speed make massive differences. That's why gas cars, people don't think much about putting their air conditioning on or having their windows down, because when you're getting 25% efficiency, it doesn't matter if you lose another 10% on 25%. It's already so inefficient. But with these new EVs, Lucid has come so far in terms of efficient design that it actually makes a big impact. So I would be frustrated, but that's not the whole story. So let's talk about charging. I think the biggest thing is charging. A lot of infrastructure. And now the new Lucid Gravity is NACS, right?
It is NACS. It actually was the first non-Tesla SUV to have an NACS.
Which is pretty cool. Now, there are some pros and some cons. So the Lucid Gravity, from what I remember looking at the documents, it can charge up to 400 kilowatts. 400 kilowatts is a huge number. That's
Correct.
Pretty substantial. There's not many chargers that even support that. However, Electrify America, some of those Mercedes-Benz chargers, and some others will be able to support that easily, and Tesla V4. In order to hit that 400 kilowatt speed, you need to have a 1,000-volt architecture supported charger. So the downside of that is a lot of the United States is supplied by 500-volt architecture, or think Tesla V3s, Tesla V2 superchargers. So if you were to pull up at one of those, the Lucid Gravity will not charge quite as fast as the Model X. It'll probably be around 220, 225 kilowatts, where the Model X will go the full 250 kilowatts. So they charge faster and slower in different scenarios, but the Lucid Gravity has the capability of charging a heck of a lot faster.
So when you really break it down for someone who's evaluating buying these two vehicles, when you're using the most prevalent supercharging network, which is Tesla, like you're gonna almost get the same amount of range added in a 15-minute period between the two vehicles.
Well, that's also a really big thing. It's like if you have the Gravity, you don't get that discounted Tesla pricing unless you buy the membership or whatever. If you have the Model X,
you're referring to the supercharging membership through Tesla.
For non-Tesla owners. But if you have the Model X, now with this new Lux package, which it's only been here for a couple weeks at this point, it could be gone after we make this video. It is almost November 2025, so who knows how long the free supercharging Lux package will be around. But with free supercharging, it's not something you have to think about in the Model X. And you're probably not going to go to Electrify America unless you really have to. So it's a weird wash of a situation. Now, where things do get really different, though, is home charging. If you're building a new property or you have 400 amp service to your house, perhaps, this is where things get really nice, because the Tesla Model X will be around 11 kilowatts for the onboard AC charger. For the Lucid Gravity, just like the Lucid Air, I believe, you're at 19, almost 20 kilowatts of charging, which in a relatively small battery pack, relatively small compared to other 20 kilowatt charging EVs on the road, like the 220 plus kilowatt Hummer and the Silverado. Those are also around 20 kilowatt AC charging, I believe. It's really nice to be able to charge that fast at home. So the Lucid Gravity, just based on the math, should be able to charge to 0 to full in almost 5 hours. So that is really, really nice, even though the pack is much larger than the Model X, or a little bit larger than the Model X. So home charging is a big difference, and that's a nice thing to see on the Gravity.
Definitely, especially if you have multiple EVs at your house. But either of these vehicles, pretty much, if you plug into one of those types of chargers at the end of the day when you wake up and you're ready to go the next day, you're going to almost have the charge you want to have when you're driving around town. So, all right, now let's talk about interior quality and practicality. So, I'll first start off by saying from my test drive of doing the Lucid Gravity, and this was the Grand Touring trim. Some things that were different between the two vehicles. The Lucid Gravity had that really cool frunk. It was almost a, what do they call it? It was like a
They corrected me. I said, "Oh, it's like a tailgate front," and they're like, "No, it's a frail gate or a front gate or something." I was like, "Okay."
front gate. Yeah, so that was a little bit different. It also had the outlet in the front, whereas the Tesla Model X just had a more of a standard front type of setup on, as is common on almost all of the Teslas. And now let's talk about inside the car. So inside the car, I would say just you smell the real leather, of course, in the Lucid Gravity. I test drove one with the Tahoe leather, and you could just tell it was a real leather, like premium. And I think you had mentioned actually to me at some point that they might have a partnership with Aston Martin, and therefore they've got some really good design chops in terms of and access to those top-notch materials. Besides that, though, I would say just the Lucid, in my opinion, felt way more like a premium SUV. It was quieter inside, and all of the materials just felt like the design quality felt really elevated. Whereas Tesla now, of course, felt a little bit more Spartan of an interior. Still really nice, still very quiet, but one just felt super polished. The Lucid Gravity felt very polished, whereas the Tesla Model X felt a little bit more plasticky.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think I will say, coming from a 3 and dailying a 3 and spending a lot of time in the Y, the X, the leather was still very supple. Like, it was a really big improvement. And I had driven it back to back with a Cybertruck, actually. And the Cybertruck just had like no rebound in those seats. The Model X was way more plush, way more soft. The leather was nice. But from what I understand, because Lucid is sourcing that leather from a tannery that Aston Martin has consistently worked with, that is just a totally different experience versus this like mango like derived vegan leather, which is actually worse for the environment. And that's a whole sidebar. Like
we won't get into that.
That experience, it feels like you're stepping into an Apple box device versus like the Lucid Gravity did properly feel like a luxurious place to be.
It did. It was way more of a design paradigm that you're familiar with if you're coming from a regular ICE luxury SUV. I would also say too, I really like the tactile buttons on the Lucid Gravity. Just had a couple around the touch display in the middle and also on the actual driving, the steering wheel itself. Mm-hmm. I just prefer having a couple buttons for things like climate, cameras, volume. Those were really nice features to have. And also too, the one thing that the Lucid had, which was very impressive to me, was the massaging seats, which I would love to try that actually out on a road trip. But I thought that was a really, really nice thing that it had. Interior of these vehicles. Let's talk about the third row. So the ones that we did a test drive of, both of them were the 7-seat config. And I will say that the Lucid Gravity had an amazing amount of space in that third row, and it was very comfortable. It also had ample storage on the side. I felt a little bit more squeezed in the Model X, and there wasn't as much storage, and the ceiling height in the back felt a little bit claustrophobic. And just for reference, I'm 5'9", and so I wasn't as impressed with the Model X. And I've also heard too that I believe the Model Y actually has more legroom.
The Model YL, which stands for long in China, so not in our market, and I don't know if we'll ever get that vehicle.
Okay, so yeah, just disregard that because we're not going to be talking about Chinese vehicles on here. The other thing I also want to mention too about the Model X that was very different from the Lucid is the Falcon doors. Now, the Falcon doors I think are a really cool party trick. However, they are, I don't know how to say it. I think they're just a little bit over the top. It's not something that I would like to have every single day, especially if I had children.
So Mike's the kind of guy, just for reference, when we were testing the Model X out, he's the kind of person that I like to research, and like when I see a door and I walk towards the car and it like soft closes or opens, I get the idea that the approaching door feature is like a thing. And so Mike was like forcing the door closed on the car. And like, I will say, to your point, the Falcon Wing doors are not, I don't like them. I never really have. They were a cool party trick back in 2016, 17, 18, but it's like they've been around for a while now. Like, we get it. They're kind of a spectacle for everyone to watch. The other big thing is because the Model X has the Falcon Wing doors, you can't put a roof rack on it. And so now you have a sport utility vehicle that's less utility and just more sporty vehicle with 6 rows of seating that's not even as comfortable as some other cars in that class. So The Falcon Wing doors are annoying. You're constantly having to explain to people how to open and close them because it's just like a little bit of a getting used to thing. Obviously, if you have kids and you don't plan on trading your kids in for a different model, they'll probably get used to it and be fine. However, I just think the X is a little bit clunky when it comes to getting in and out of those back 2 rows. And the front doors, I could see myself with elderly people in my life, like them not knowing how the soft close front doors work, or like that they approach when you open, or that you don't have to close the doors yourself. Little things like that I think were confusing, where the gravity felt more intuitive getting in and out, even though they were soft close. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Falcon Wing doors, and I just think it would be more usable if they had regular doors. I will say the Lucid Gravity looks like a minivan, so they probably should have just put sliding doors on that thing.
It's true. I do prefer just anecdotally, I know design is very subjective. I did prefer the look of the Model X. I thought it looked more like a sporty premium SUV versus, like you said, the minivan kind of looking Lucid. I did think overall, again, it's a premium looking car. It just has more of a minivan style. Now I want to talk briefly on the trunk space. I think the trunk space in both these vehicles was very impressive, and I don't think that one of them has an advantage over the other.
So we test drove the Lucid Gravity and the Model X, not exactly back to back, but pretty darn close. You drove the Gravity for what seemed like a whole day. I drove the Gravity pretty intermittently. They didn't give me 15 laps around the track that you got. I will say it felt really fast when I was in it. When we were driving the Model X, I spent a lot of time as a passenger, and that felt really scary. We have our cameraman Carson over here. Carson, if you want to come in and say hi. When Carson was driving the Model X, it was terrifying because it just felt insanely fast, and especially with full self-driving, which we were also testing, that was a little scary. I think it was version 14. So I don't know, the Gravity was a nice place to be. It accelerated, it felt really nice, it handled really well. I'll say it is surprising how light the Lucid Gravity feels on its toes, considering even in this comparison, it's 1,000 pounds heavier than the Tesla Model X. 1,000 pounds. Both of these are heavyweight, large SUVs. That is a substantial amount of difference. I was surprised to see that. So yeah, I enjoyed the Lucid Gravity. I wonder.
Did you get a chance to try launch mode?
I didn't get a chance to try launch mode. It didn't feel as fast as a couple other things that we had driven, like the quad motor Rivian R1T, but that makes sense. But it felt plenty fast for a fake minivan SUV.
Just to compare the two from a 0 to 60, so the Lucid Gravity that we test drove was 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, and then it was 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. I'm confusing that with the Tesla Model X, which was 3.8 seconds.
Did we have a plaid Model X?
No,
we had a regular
okay. Long range.
So nears makes no difference, really.
Yeah, they're basically almost the same there. I will just note too, both the X and the Gravity were extremely quiet. The Lucid Gravity was quiet beyond any other vehicle I've ever been in. I don't even know if you'd actually hear a siren driving by you. It was that quiet. So it's just a nice feature. I think both of them had really good sound qualities. All right, so I brought Carson in. Carson's gotten an opportunity to also test drive the Model X. Carson, what did you think about the size of the Model X?
So driving the Model X, it didn't feel as big as I thought it would. The car still felt small and maneuverable, especially in the parking lot I was driving it in. I could still maneuver the turns pretty well. Those sharp 90-degree corners with narrow entrances and exits. It just didn't feel as large, and for the acceleration, it definitely was fast. I thought it handled pretty well. It was pretty quiet. I will say, riding as a passenger in the Lucid Gravity, the Model X didn't feel as fast, now because the 0 to 60 wasn't as fast, but the Lucid Gravity had smoother acceleration compared to the Model X. And then, I know not many people care about this, but the sound system, I thought the Lucid Gravity had a way better sound system than the Model X, even with the Model X being good. But I just thought the Lucid Gravity had a better sound system, and it was a smoother ride.
Moving on to software and technology. So now, both of these vehicles, obviously as being full electric SUVs from the ground up, they have impressive technology, but in my opinion, the Tesla Model X being on Tesla's whole system just isn't a league of its own. Now, ideally, a Tesla Model Y, and the experience was on the X was very similar to what my Model Y is. Whereas for me, the Lucid Gravity, it felt just like any other company's infotainment system, with the big screen in the middle. But there's just this intuitive sense about having a Tesla in terms of how easy it is to use, and just you just really feel like they go above and beyond to always add new features. Whereas I don't know if you're going to get that same level of support. Actually, highly doubt you're going to get that same level of support, just an enthusiasm for over-the-air updates like you have in the Tesla Model X.
The Lucid, we spent both a decent amount of time with it, but not enough to truly know what it's like to live with. And I would say the biggest difference, the reason that I would recommend Teslas to older people, even though it seems crazy, right? Because they're so minimalist in the stocks and this and that, is that the charging network, just the way that the charging is integrated into the map, the way that little things like your features you're talking about, like the auto on for the steering wheel or the auto heated seats. The auto heated steering wheel and the auto heated seats are huge. If someone turns the climate control off, so say it's at 66 degrees and then they turn it off, the seat heat will come up and the steering wheel seat heat will come up. Like these little things that Tesla has thought through that make it so much easier, and just the interface, right? Like I would liken it to this. I think there's that brand like VTech or whatever that used to be at Toys R Us with those big plastic laptops that you would get your like 3-year-old. That's what it feels like, no offense, but really getting into a Rivian, a Lucid, a lot of these other things, they feel like, it's like laggy when you touch the screen and things don't move around. I do love the buttons. I do love the look and feel. I like the real leather. Like Lucid did an excellent job. But when you're using some of those infotainment systems, they just feel laggier. They don't feel like instantaneous. The brightness isn't where you want it to be. I felt a similar experience with the Lucid and with Rivian. So I prefer Tesla's products. I think there's a lot of things I'd like to see improved by Tesla. They really need to get on that 250 kilowatt charging. Like everybody is moving to a 1,000-volt architecture. Like where are you guys in that? I don't want to just be critical of Lucid, but I do think that from a software implementation standpoint, the other big thing is the app. So many people forget, like when you're using Tesla and you're using the Tesla app, when you go to turn climate control on, you go to unlock your door. Yes, if you don't have connectivity to your car, you're like in the mountains somewhere and your car doesn't have a cell reception, it won't work super fast. But compared to Hyundai Blue Link, compared to Kia Connect, compared to the Silverado and the GM products, like it takes a half an hour to unlock your door. And you're talking about 6-figure cars. Like Tesla's experience is what you expect it to be. These other manufacturers, I just don't feel like the software development is like where it should be to be competing at that level, and that's my personal opinion. So I think everybody has work to do on both sides. I don't want to be overly critical of any one party, but I do think that Tesla takes the cake in terms of the app experience and the in-car experience.
Agreed. Now, to be fair, like you mentioned, I don't daily drive the Lucid, so I can't speak to a really intimate experience with that system. But just from my initial experience, it just felt like everybody else's infotainment and tech in the industry. Want to cover now on a very important topic, which is full self-driving versus the Dream Drive Pro. So the Model X has FSD, and as of almost November 2025, it's included in the Lux package that comes with the Model X. The FSD, now I've gotten an opportunity to test to use hardware 3 and hardware 4, which is the latest version. And hardware 4 is really impressive. I mean, again, it's door-to-door style navigation. From what I understand, I didn't get a chance to use Dream Drive Pro, but Dream Drive Pro is not door-to-door navigation. There's multiple levels of autonomous driving, and it's more akin to level 2 autonomous driving, which means that it's going to help you change lanes on the highway. It's going to help keep your pace for things like adaptive cruise control, lane assist, right? But it's not going to get you door to door. And so I really truly feel like when you're getting the Model X, you're kind of super proofing yourself in a way for this world that is already here, which is full self-driving capability. I'm not sure. I mean, I have heard that the Dream Drive Pro and the hardware is going to support level 3 autonomy, but that takes a lot of money and it takes a lot of engineering to perfect. And I just can't imagine that Lucid is going to be anywhere close to Tesla in that regards.
We had a comment recently that was talking about the Saudi investment that's gone into Lucid, and it's funny. It's like Tesla's just it's not just about the money in terms of investment. It's like, I forget the stat, but every day that goes by, Tesla has millions and millions and millions and millions of miles of data to train the algorithm, where it's like Dream Drive Pro and Lucid has so few cars on the road that it's like, it's not, Tesla is so far ahead, not just in what they have out today, but in terms of like what they're able to do based on the mine of data that they're already bringing in. It's going to be hard for anybody to really catch up in a meaningful way. So yeah, that and the reliability factor, it's nice that even Tesla, I would complain about Tesla not having enough service centers for people to get to. Lucid and Rivian certainly have that same issue. Like GM and that whole world is probably the ones that have the most access for people to go to in any town. Ford or GM, where you could just go to a dealership. Now, a lot of people still don't know how to work on EVs in the tech departments, but they're getting more and more trained. So I just think that Lucid is at the other end of that extreme where it's like, it's a lot of money for a car that doesn't have the autonomous driving and also doesn't have the level of access. Yes, they have third-party partnerships with body shops and some other mechanic shops, but what is that really like? Like having mobile service has been really good. As Tesla, like being a couple hours away from a service center, it's really nice that at least mobile service can do some things. So I don't know what that's like for Lucid. I've seen some scary issues where people had to like message the CEO to get things done. I hope it's not bad like that for Lucid drivers now, but that's a concern of mine too when you're spending this kind of money.
Thank you for watching this video. We know $100,000 is a lot to spend on a new SUV, and we hope that this helps you make a decision.
If you're considering the Lucid Gravity, let us know in the comments why the Gravity over the X. And if you're considering the Tesla Model X, let us know why you would pick the Tesla Model X over the Lucid Gravity. Until next time,
God bless.
Moto, which one do you prefer? Do you want the Model X or the Lucid Gravity?
Wait to watch this video to see what we think between these two vehicles. What are you doing? Is the Taco Bell head in here?